Hi, everyone, and welcome to this evening's panel discussion, the final installation of this season's Visiting an Artist Critic series, a collaboration between GOCA and the Visual Arts Department here at UCCS. My name is Lene Cravens. I'm the Exhibitions and Events Manager with GOCA, so if you've been to the gallery or in this space, you've probably seen me around. Before we get going, I'd like to thank GOCA's season sponsors who help produce events like this and the exhibitions you see in our space. Our season sponsors are the El Pomar Foundation, the Janine K. Sheehy Memorial Fund, the UCCS Green Action Fund, the UCCS Student Government Association, the GOCA Advisory Council, members of our curator circle, and our wonderful VAP of colleagues. So thank you for all of our season sponsors. So now I'm going to introduce our panel, because you're not here to hear me talk, you're here to hear these wonderful visual arts faculty talk. So first, please welcome our moderator, Professor Corey Drieth. He attended Colorado State University, where he received an undergraduate degree in comparative religious studies and studio art, followed by going to graduate school at the University of North Carolina, where he received his MFA and with a thesis in drawing and painting. Corey's work has been exhibited throughout the country, including San Francisco, Denver, Albuquerque, New Orleans, Chicago, Washington, D.C., and New York. So welcome, Corey. Next, we have Mariah Dekkenga, our newest member of the visual faculty here at UCCS, who's completing her first year. Synthesizing traditional painting techniques with computer-based compositional methods, her work explores the intersection of technology and painting as craft. Questions about how images function as physical objects and convey virtual information are central to her practice, as in how information in such context is mediated, communicated, and defined. Mariah's work has been exhibited and collected internationally, from New York to Berlin to Qatar. So welcome, Mariah. Finally, we are pleased to introduce Claire Rau, currently wrapping up her final semester at UCCS before retirement. She works in printmaking and sculpture, engaging with objects that straddle politics, sexuality, and terrain. Claire is a founding member of The Front, an artist collective and gallery space in New Orleans, has recently showed at the Living Arts in Tulsa, the Morris Graves Museum of Art, Mass Gallery, and Vox Populi. So welcome, Claire. And now I'm going to pass it off to Corey to moderate tonight's talk. So thank you, Corey.
Thanks for coming, everybody. It's nice to see you here tonight. As Lene said, my name is Corey Drieth, and I'm a professor of painting and drawing in the visual art program here at UCCS. And I'm really excited to be the person moderating this discussion. Both of these people are, how should I say this? Claire and I have been friends for over 20 years, and we've been colleagues here at UCCS for almost 18. And to me, she's had just an incredible impact, both on me as an artist and as a person, but also on our program. Mariah I've known only about a year, but I'm just blown away by the instant impact she's had on our program in such a short time. And I'm so excited to have a painting colleague, which I haven't really had in my entire time here. So, can we just give these two a hand one more time? Because I just think they're such fantastic people. Thank you. So I'm just going to jump right into this, and we're going to start with Claire. I have about 5 questions or so, but we'll see how far we go. And at the end, we really would like for you all to ask some questions. So we're going to try to leave a little bit of time for that. We'll see how it all goes, but we're going to try to do that. So if you could hold your questions until then, that would be great. And if we happen to run out of time, you'll have a chance outside in the foyer, in the lobby, to actually ask these two wonderful artists and teachers questions. So let's jump right in. So Claire, we'll start with you. You ready?
Yes.
Claire, when did you first realize you wanted to be an artist, and what artist, etc., inspired you along the way?
Well, since we were talking about my chopped off finger, that's when I was in a metal class, and I had chopped off my finger. And I kind of realized that you kind of have to make a decision as a sculptor, at some point, something's going to go really wrong. And are you in or are you out? So I think that was a moment where I was like, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to try and be safer and not make the really stupid decision that I did. But I think also in printmaking and in sculpture, all the classes I had taken, I worked as a mentor. So if people were etching their plates and left them in for like 50 hours, or, we're trying to cut like a 2x4 with, I don't know, an X-Acto knife, I was there to help them make shit happen. And I really enjoyed that process. And I think that's when I thought, I really enjoy teaching. I love being in school. I think it's a very safe place to try out risky and provocative ideas, and they give you a great library card. Yeah.
Can I ask you a follow-up question on that?
Please.
Can you tell us a little bit, one of the things that always struck me about you is you're interested in art history and how much art history plays a role in your work. Can you talk to us about maybe movements or eras that were particularly impactful to you?
So I had an amazing medieval art history teacher, and this is back when we're old, right? And so you had the 2 slide carousels, and they would show the slides, and they were all black and white. And so you had to have a teacher that could really make these spaces be alive. And you're looking at these old manuscripts, and I really fell in love with the way, I think he gave a lecture where he was talking about this mosaic church in Sicily, in Palermo, where the saints are looking across at one another. And there was something about that that really hit me in terms of both the relationships of these, kind of stories and imaginary people, but also the folks that made those pieces as well too, that really brought it to life. I think also I love the Baroque period. Seeing Bernini for the first time and then seeing it in person, which I was really privileged to do, I was just blown away by that sense of theater. It's lusty, it's political, it's provocative. It's usually about rape or abduction, which I thought was crazy. And it was often the patron was a cardinal too, which seemed really kind of crazy. I also had a great contemporary art history teacher, and that's when I started learning about Fluxus, and Dada, which I also loved. So I think the only art history period of time that I don't really love, I don't love the Renaissance so much. It's kind of boring. Yeah. Once you look at Baroque, you never go back. Yeah.
You go for Baroque?
I go Baroque.
Okay. Thanks, Claire. Mariah, would you like me to reread the question?
No. No, thank you. I decided I wanted to be an artist in kindergarten, and I don't really understand in my child mind what I was thinking that was. It was kind of the age where everybody starts asking you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I think because my parents were a part of the Back to the Land movement, and I grew up in a log house without heater running water, and my mother was kind of a crafts person. She did rose mauling on Venetian blinds. I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with rose mauling, but it's this kind of Scandinavian technique where you paint these floral patterns on wood things. So I would get up every morning and I would smell the oil paints, and my father was a master carpenter, and I was just constantly surrounded by people who were making stuff all the time. So it just seemed like a natural fit for me. And yeah, I go back and I think about, I can remember the exact moment sitting with my 2 friends when we were asking each other, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'm going to be an artist. I was coloring in my My Little Pony coloring book. What could I have possibly been thinking? But yeah, maybe I was stubborn or something. I just stuck with it. And,
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that and again, I'm going to ask a follow-up question to you too. One of the things when you interviewed here that really struck me was, you make a lot of different things from, I guess we would call them analog paintings and digital work that kind of relates to painting. And I was really blown away by what you called screensavers. And I know you were inspired by textiles and like Ani Albers. And can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. So when I was in college, I had to have a job. I had to work. I was working 30 hours a week, and I somehow ended up working for this upstart advertising agency in the small town I grew up in. And the guy who was doing graphic design quit. And so they're like, you're an art student, here you go. So I ended up learning how to use the Adobe Suite. I mean, this is in 1995, so you can imagine what the Adobe Suite was like back then. So I kind of always knew how to do digital things, but I didn't really incorporate it into my work until later. It was I don't know, you're all too young to remember, but the internet was a very sort of visually impoverished, uninspiring space for many years. So it didn't really become a part of my work until, when I was living in New York and I had to work a full-time job and I wanted to make paintings and I sort of didn't have a lot of time. I figured out how to kind of break down my practice into parts. And I was kind of experimenting with color and abstraction, and it sort of occurred to me that maybe I can just work these compositions out on the computer before I start to paint them. That would make my life a lot easier. So I started working the compositions out on the computer, and then I was like, these compositions are so boring, maybe they could be a screensaver. So my practice kind of forked at that point where I was like, okay, I'm going to make these things called screensavers, which I was interested in also just because of the word screensaver is so, it's not an art word. It sort of sets people's expectations up in a different way, and I was sort of interested in that. So yeah, I was always doing digital stuff for my job, but it didn't come into my work until later.
Great, thanks. It's absolutely worth looking at that stuff because for y'all, it's moved so slowly that changes are imperceptible. So you'll leave the room and then you'll see a slight change when you come back. It's really pretty amazing. The work of both of these artists to me is really amazing. So let's move on to maybe some more about your work, Claire. What are some of the themes you find yourself returning to kind of over and over in your work, and why do you think they have such a pull on you?
I think body autonomy, decay, flesh, pressing flesh. Isn't that great? Such a great phrase, pressing flesh. A lot of questions that I have that I don't have the language for, and I feel that art is that place where I can make objects or images that ask those questions in not such a concrete way and that become separate from me, which I really enjoy and have this other life. I think a lot of experimentation with materials, but I find I always come back to steel or wood, so there's the familiar as well. And that's why clay, I'm so, it's love-hate. I love the way that it looks when other people use it, but I find it really a struggle. And that challenges me. So I always like a challenge as well, too. And I fail a lot.
I remember some sculptural cod pieces you made in graduate school. Didn't you do something like that? So sexuality, as you kind of talked about, too. And that has been my experience of your work, too. A range of materials, processes, formats, and a lot of times the body in pain, I would say.
Yeah, or in transition, and not quite mutation, but spoils, taking something from something else as a trophy or as a way of control or domination really interests me. That like I look a lot at these weird treasure objects that will have like an ostrich egg and a piece of coral and a weird horn, and they're combined with all of this guilt and other stuff. And I'm really intrigued by these objects of power that were also like tchotchkes of their time, but they were made as status symbols. So I think status and class and those ideas of power are innate in those works. And I try to touch on that. I don't know if I'm always successful, but I do try. Yeah, but the body is like the ultimate terrain. Like that's how we experience this world. So I think I'm always going to be relating to that.
And the nexus, some of that.
As a woman too,
Totally makes sense. And I also remember some reliquaries you work, which is kind of made that is a kind of place of nexus, right? It's a kind of coming together a lot of the things that you're talking about.
Yeah, some of those were really bad and totally appropriated a lot of cultures, like not in a great way. But I also think that sometimes you have to make terrible work and make mistakes and have terrible critiques to really go to like the next. I mean, I was talking to another student this week. I don't like to be told what to do at all. And so I'm one of those people as an Aries that I like to mess up and try and mess up and try. And I'm willing to take an extraordinary amount of time to do that. I'm trying to be better at listening, but I also find that really difficult. But I think objects of power, beautiful objects that people would go hundreds of miles to steal and like rampage a city. And I don't know, yeah, all those reliquaries and all the dead body parts, like Christ's umbilical cord. Crazy.
If you could see the glint in her eye up here, you'd know that was, really, charges you up.
I was just amazed. Like St. Anthony's vocal cords, wild. Yeah, go see it. It's in Padua. You can go see it. It's like right on the wall. Someone's vocal cords, right?
Someone's vocal cords. Thanks, Claire. All right, Mariah, how about you?
I think I do need you to repeat the question this time.
I'm happy to do it. What are some of the themes you find yourself returning to in your work, and why do you think they have such a pull on you?
For sure. So when I was in undergrad, I didn't study painting at all. I studied sculpture. And then when I graduated from undergrad, I was, living in a very crappy small apartment, and I didn't have access to any of the equipment that I sort of needed to maintain that practice. So I thought, okay, I want to make something, but I need something that I can make here in my apartment. So I thought, okay, I'll try making a painting. And at that time, Gerhard Richter was kind of, I don't know if he was having a comeback, but he was like having a moment in the art world. And I was really sort of fascinated by the fact that, I was always a pretty decent drafts person. I could draw pretty well. And I was sort of fascinated by the fact that he was making these paintings that looked exactly like photographs, but they were somehow more than the photograph. They sort of had this quality that was more, like some sort of surplus that was hard to define. And there was a lot of sort of discourse happening about the end of painting and the death of painting, which is something, if you study painting, you find out happens every 30 years or so. But I sort of became fascinated with the idea of what is an image? It's something that's more than the material it's made out of. It operates at this level that's not really discourse or words. It's something else. Or I just became very fascinated with images and how they sort of function. So yeah, really working with images. And if you look at my work, it's kind of my painting is I put this kind of modeling paste layer down, which is the texture of the material of the paint. And then I paint this image over the top that is sort of intentionally separate from the material. So, and there's all kinds of personal things that kind of come in and out of that. But that basic, I guess, foundational relationship of like thinking about images as like more than material, as something sort of metaphysical. It's just like, it's been there in my work for, I think, a really long time. Yeah.
That makes sense. When looking at your paintings, there's almost a dissonance at times between surface and object, and you kind of vacillate between the two. And so, but at the same time, I find them really to be incredibly beautiful. How do you feel about beauty as it relates to your work?
I'm like fine with beauty. Like, I don't really I'm fine with it. Like, people describe my paintings to me that way, and I'm always sort of surprised because I don't see them that way. Like, I mean, I don't think of I don't think of it as like, when I sit down to like, I make all my compositions for my paintings on the computer. So I sit down in front of the computer and I may have some sort of like mental image or impulse of some sort of maybe relationship I want to explore, and I'm just like ripping through compositions really fast. So I'll make 200 or 300 compositions on the computer. Like, the great thing about working on the computer is you aren't really committed to anything. You can sort of see these relationships, before you have to actually paint them. And then I kind of go back and like choose which ones are the most interesting to me. But like, beauty is never something, like, beauty is so complicated. Like, I don't even know what that means, really. Like, it's so subjective. I mean, if people find it beautiful, that's fine. It's just not like it's not a word I think a lot about.
You don't aspire to making beautiful objects?
I'm not thinking, like, I definitely am interested in craft. That is very important to me. And that comes, I think, from my parents. And like being a part of the whole, like, we're building our own house, we're building our own cabinets, we're building, like, everything in here is like made by us, and we care deeply about the integrity of the object. So like, craft is really important to me in that way.
And I think that's a place of overlap between the two of you. And I think that probably is a source for at least some of that response to when I see both of your work. I know, Claire, I've seen your work for a long time, and when you sometimes kind of process it, it's pretty horrifying, but it's almost always beautiful and always well crafted. And that was my experience. I haven't seen your paintings in person yet, but just stunning. Like, they just seem stunning and so well thought and so kind of attended to. So that's a really interesting area of overlap between the two of you, I think. So let's keep moving here. Claire, what 5 verbs or words would you use to describe your process in the studio?
I was thinking about this in the shower today. And I think planning, like, I plan quite a bit. I experiment. I fail. Is redo a verb? To redo?
Yeah. Close enough, I think.
And I'm going to say to mash.
To mash? Can you,
like potatoes.
Can you give us an example?
Steel kind of feels soft to me. For such a hard material, it's like a piece of paper. It keeps the memory. If you've ever bent it and then try to straighten it out again, it's impossible. So a lot of times I feel like bending or moving steel, it does feel like mashing. Like you're trying to, it's the same with woodworking. You're trying to coax something. You can't force it. You're trying to coax something. Yeah, to coax. I'll change that. I'll change planning to coaxing.
To coax. So to coax, to mash, to redo.
And fail.
And fail. So that's only 4. We need 5 from you.
This is tough.
I gave them these questions way beforehand.
Yes, you did.
FYI.
It's still hard.
I want to say hazard to hazard. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, I watched like all 4 days of the Masters competition in Augusta, Georgia while I was grading. And they talked about hazard as a verb, as in when you hit a bunker of some kind. Yeah. So I'm very inspired by the Masters. If anyone gets a lottery ticket ever and needs a friend to go with them,
go to Augusta.
I really want to see this really artificial, crazy place full of insane golfers.
Does that mean to allow for mistakes?
It's almost like a dare to hazard. It's like a pirate kind of word. Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks. All right, Mariah.
5 words. Okay. Well, I kind of like my practice is kind of broken down into like I do different things at different times. I've kind of learned to sort of like, okay, like the intuitive part happens on the computer because I think that's a great place to be intuitive because you have unlimited undos, you can save multiple copies, you know, so it's like when I work on the computer, I'm kind of trying to outrun myself. So I feel like intuitive, I mean, it's like the word we all use, but I think that's sort of important. Like I'm responding to things in a nonverbal way. Let's see, systemic. Like I've developed a lot of sort of methods for crafting the paintings and the way that I do. So it's like I have a lot of, like every single painting, every sort of place where the shapes meet is like blurred slightly. So I have to work wet into wet. So I've had to devise all of these strategies for like, whatever, figure out how to make the paintings I want. So like systemic, like analytical. Like I think I have a very analytical mind. Like when I approach choosing which compositions I actually want to paint, it's often the ones that maybe I don't like or I think are a little weird or something. There's something to be learned through the process of making the painting. Let's see, that's 3. Okay. Patient. My paintings take a long time to make. So it's like every painting you see up there, like it's done in like an 8-hour stretch, and it's done multiple layers, like 3 or 4 layers. So you have to be really patient and focused. What is that for?
It's 4.
It's the 5th one. Ruthless. I think I judge myself very hard. And that's just part of the process, I guess.
You internalize it?
Yeah, I mean, I just judge myself very hard. Like I'm always trying to like one-up myself. So I'm always like looking for the whatever perceived flaws that I'm sure are only perceptible to me and trying to like drive past those.
Are you weary of being satisfied?
I'm like never satisfied. I mean, are artists ever satisfied? I don't think that's a thing.
I was going to ask you if you actually liked your work.
I hate my work.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know many artists that like their work.
Yeah, it's like it's like you set up a problem for yourself and then you execute the problem or whatever, not execute the problem, but you go through the process and all you see are the problems and all your, like when you look at it, all your memories of like, or of interacting with this thing is like where it was going wrong, you know? But like that's where you learn, you know, you like take that experience into the next thing and you keep going, you know?
So are either of you ever surprised by what you made and satisfied by the fact that there's this kind of like myth of kind of being a part of something that's larger than you? Do you ever have that experience?
No, but I'll say like getting these images together, I was like, hey, that's not bad. That's not bad.
Feeling a little better about it?
You know, I feel a little bit better about, my life.
Mm-hmm.
But it's good days and bad days.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. You?
I like feeling like painting is like this big weird family that like goes back over several centuries and there's like I'm not like a really medium driven person. I just kind of landed on painting and became weirdly addicted. But like the cool thing about painting is there are so many people who've done it and like you feel like you can kind of communicate with those people even though you've never met them by like picking up things from all these different people and then kind of collaging all these things together. And in that sense, it's nice. I feel like I'm part of something bigger. Like I'm a part of the family of people who've made paintings, which I think is nice.
So there's a revelation in that in a little bit, like just this kind of coming together of things.
Yeah, like even if I'm not like,
whatever, even if I'm not like showing at the moment, it sort of doesn't matter. It's all of this, it's part of this like, collective of people who like spend their time doing this thing.
Yeah, part of history, part of a long history. Yeah, fantastic. Thanks you both. Okay, Claire, as an artist, what does failure look like to you, and what does success look like?
I think I'd rather fail in a lot of ways because it's more interesting. And I end up in a different place than I thought I would. And I think as an artist, you have to get used to that. If you're too comfortable, I think that's bad. I'd say, you can have a cream puff life, right, and get the lattes, but you can also challenge yourself. And I would just say, like, we're not here in this, like, I don't feel like I'm in this one body to just be comfortable all the time. It's not good for me. I don't know, not that I'm bored very often, but I think it would be very bad if I weren't challenged, which is why I stayed in an educational environment, because my students, my colleagues, the research is like really constant. You're constantly trying to do. And it's different if you were, say, a finance bro, I think, in a different way. Success, I get really excited when someone I don't know will talk to me about my work and maybe not even know who I am. Like at the front, it was really exciting. You have some like old woodworker dude come up and like talk about your work and they have no idea who you are. It's like really awesome. It's like an anonymous kind of conversation. Yeah. I don't usually like people telling me what a great job I do because I'm like, I know, like it's good, right? I am more interested in the problems, and I get more satisfaction out of, I don't know, like that's tough. Success, I might feel more success like alone than necessarily looking at my work in the gallery, like when I finish a piece and I'm like, yes.
So is success in some ways failing? Could they be the same thing for you a
I
little
think
bit?
they're very similar, but I also think like success and kudos and like getting A's and all that stuff is like whoop-de-doo. You need to satisfy yourself in whatever way that is. Like I think maybe our system is set up for certain ways of devising that, but I don't think they're that great, Yeah. You have to please yourself. And be true to yourself and be honest and have integrity. Yeah.
Absolutely. Can you give us just a quick example of a recent failure that you found interesting? It could be in the classroom. It could be in the studio.
Well, I try to take a clay class at Anderson Ranch in the summer because I'm so terrible at clay. And the teacher that I've had the last few years will always come up and be like, oh, Claire, it looks like you've been doing some work with clay. And I'm like, you were lying? You were a lying dog. I haven't touched clay since I saw you last year, and my stuff looks like so dumpy and terrible. But I kind of like that. I kind of like being like the worst in the class because I'm not used to that either. And it's really refreshing because then you can make whatever you want. And people will be like, oh, what's Claire? I don't know what she's doing over there. And it like falls off the wall because that's what happened. It, like,
So there's freedom in that for you.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Mariah, what does failure look like to you, and what does success look like?
Well, there's like capital F failure, and then there's like little f failure. And like, I think of like little f failure, little s success is just like, that's part of every single thing that you make. Like certain things don't work, certain things do work. So you're like in the studio, constantly sort of battling against this like mental image that you have of the thing that you're trying to make. And like everything you make is kind of an attempt. You know what I mean? Like you're attempting. And like certain parts work and certain parts don't work. So that's like little s, little f. And then like, I just think of like, the big F would just be not having a practice. And like, you find at certain times of your life, it's like, it's hard to maintain your practice. you know? It's like, oh my God, I'm working like 60 hours a week, blah, 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 blah. Like, how do I make time for this thing that's really important to me? And like, I guess that's like, would be capital F, like, at the end of the day, is like not honoring my practice.
That makes sense. Can you give us an example of like either one, little f or big F, moment recently in your life?
Oh my gosh. Every moment is like little f. Like, I'm working on a painting right now. You know, right now I'm kind of trying to experiment with like, okay, how can I get the texture in my paintings to do more? And how can I get the image to sort of stand back and sort of let the texture reassert itself? So like, there's more stuff going on in the texture now, and the image has become more minimal. So it's like in some ways, it's like my eye hasn't even like caught up to what I'm doing. So I don't even know if what I'm doing is successful. Like sometimes it takes time. Like you have to, you know, look at it and then come back in like 6 months and look at it again to even see what it is. So yeah, does that answer the question?
It does, yeah, it absolutely does. So I think we have about one more question, and then we'll open it up to to questions from the audience. This is my favorite question. Claire, what, if anything, have you learned from students?
Patience. And I am, like, we have a small yet mighty studio. I mean, usually people come into our trailer. It's a very nice trailer. I love that trailer. And we'll be like, oh, this is it. And I'm like, yeah, this is it. The unbelievable work that people will make. And I've been to other places where they have every fucking tool. They have all the stuff. It never gets used. Their work is crap. And our students at UCCS will like blow people away, even though we're using like the most rudimentary stuff. And I'll also give like Nick Henning credit right here, who supports me in every class. Because without him, it would definitely like be problems. And of course, Matt Barton, our supreme leader out there too. So I think like as an artist, given limited means, how can you do what you want to do and let no thing like get in your way, as long as you're not harming anyone or yourself, right? To say what it is that you want. And I'm always impressed with what our students do, you know, and hopefully in a safe manner.
A limitation is a great asset. So not bemoaning what you don't have, but actually taking advantage of what is in front of you, right? Yeah, great. How about you, Mariah?
There's this concept in Zen Buddhism called beginner's mind. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with it, but you should definitely look it up. It's like, I'm going to be 50 in a couple years, and like, you know, I've spent my entire life making art, and like, my interests have become sort of very narrow or very specific or very, like, you know, very focused. Like, I'm very focused in my practice at this point in my life. And it's really sort of amazing to introduce something like painting to students where they don't necessarily have any concepts of, like, any idea of their own limitations, you know? So it kind of helps me, you know, they're just like, there's so many different ways to make a painting. There's like a million different ways to make a painting, and you're trying to sort of honor every student's interests and like help guide them into this universe that is painting if they decide that's what they want. And the different creative ways that students have of approaching what painting is so amazing. It's just amazing to see like what students are capable of and like what's going to be their interesting thing. It makes me reanalyze or rethink a lot of things that I take for granted about painting. Like, oh yeah, like you can just work in a totally different way and make something amazing, you know, that's so different than my own practice. And like being able to experience that again after you've spent your whole career like super focused on your own weird thing. You're just like, oh yeah, painting is also this, and it's also this weird thing. Like, that's really exciting.
It kind of inspires and surprises you?
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, it's like, again, there are so many sort of like sub-histories within painting of people doing all these different things, and you feel like maybe you've been looking at it for so long that you've seen it all, but like, you know, students always surprise you, and what students are capable of, or it's like so amazing, you know.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to sneak one more in. We have a little time, so I'm going to sneak one more in. And I think this is for the students here tonight. Claire, what pieces of advice would you give to aspiring artists?
Wear sunscreen. Take care of your teeth. Think before you use power tools. And follow your heart. I mean, that sounds really cheesy, but I think, like, I believe we have one chance, you know, and that you should make the most of it and just do everything that you want to do and don't wait.
It takes a lot of courage. Great.
Yeah.
Great. How about you, Mariah?
Like, especially when you graduate, like, I think the thing that is the most important is to, like, make sure you find a community of like-minded individuals who can help you, like, maintain your practice. Like, I think that was really hard for me, like, when I graduated from undergrad, just because suddenly the world was happening, and it was outside my school experience. And, like, I didn't make art for, like, 2 years, and it felt really terrible. And, like, finding a community of other artists that I could, like, share ideas with, or who even, like, who were similar people to me, was really important. So I would say, like, find, like, a community, especially after you graduate, of people who can, like, so you can help each other, like, keep working. Like, I think that's really important.
That's how I've gotten all my jobs.
Say that again? What?
Like, you got me this job.
I didn't get you this job.
It's like your network is really important. So if you burn a bunch of bridges or you're an asshole, it's not going to go well.
Yeah. Don't be an asshole.
Yeah, but in addition to even, like, the practical parts of, like, you know, helping you survive, whatever, it's important to, like, have kind of like a support group of people who are like, I really get this weird thing that you'd like to do, and I really get that you want to go spend time doing this thing, and I get that you know, whatever, like, people who understand that. Like, I think because it's kind of hard to find that outside of school.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a huge thing. It really helps keep you going when things are difficult. And it helps you find opportunities, all of the things that a good community does, for sure. So that's fantastic. I just want to say, the title of tonight is Teaching Taught. As Lene said, Claire's on her way out after 18 years of teaching here. And we're really going to miss Claire. Two things can be true. We're really going to miss Claire, and we're really excited about Mariah's presence. As a side note, I'm going to completely revise my beginning painting class based on what I've seen Mariah do. So we have a void because of Claire's departure, but we also have a new presence that I think is going to be a very important part of what we do moving forward. So thank you all for coming, and could we give these two a hand one more time?